In the news lately, they've been talking about pastors that has become millionaires um, through the church, and is that there's been a lot of questions about motives and reasons and purpose, and why is it necessary for someone that is a pastor to be a millionaire, and did they get and did the money come from the church? And so when you look at the stories that has been told, you look at the church has raised X amount of dollars, and the pastor have X amount of dollars, um, but yet the community in some cases are lacking. In other words, the community is not seeing those dollars. So let's break it down a little bit when I talk about the pastor, the preacher, and the CEO. Now, the first thing I want to let you know is that every pastor is not a pastor. Some pastors are just CEOs, and that's it. Now, I must say that it's necessary to understand the importance of business when you're running a church. But you have to also understand the importance of it not being looked at or being perceived as a business. And so in this day and time, people see churches more as a business than they do a church. The first thing, let's kind of deal with some questions that may be in your mind, like what is the church? The first thing I want to say that the church is people. Church is individuals, and the church is a community of individuals that believe in the principles of the gospel of Jesus Christ, which they are called Christians. That's what the church is. Now, when you start talking about buildings, sanctuaries, temples, synagogues, centers, those what we call places of worship, and these are where the places where the church come and they gather together for worship, right? And the ideal is that God is going to meet Christians at the church, and God will meet them through the pastor that receives revelation or a word from God that he present out to the people. All right. And so, but the ideal is that people must have faith in this man, have faith in God, have faith in Christ, have faith in the gospel. And faith just basically believing in something that you typically wouldn't believe in if you didn't have faith. It takes faith to believe, and takes belief to believe in faith. And I talk about that in traditions, religions, and in God. So, but but let's deal with the whole idea. Now, a CEO, everybody knows a CEO is someone that has been chosen by the board of trustees, or if they're a business that is listed in the stock market where they sell shares of their business, then the trustee board are the individuals that bring on CEOs to implement the policies and procedures of the company, and to give the company a vision on what they need to do moving forward as it relates to making profit. So the CEO bottom line is to make profit, and he must implement policies and procedures. He must come with ideals and visions in order to make these things happen. And to build profit, you have to build your customer base, and you have to offer the type of service that will bring customers to the business or the service. And so that means that he has to look at every detail of how the business got from one place to the other, and how can it move forward. So it's a step by step basis. So if the business made 10,000, I'm doing small numbers. If the business made 10,000 last year, then the CEO saying, okay, that's great, but we want to make 20,000. So our goal or our objective is to continue to build the profit and not let the profit remain the same. So their focus is the business aspect of it is to build profit from one aspect to the next. Now, this tricky thing when you start talking about pastors that think like a CEO, totally think like a CEO, is that their objective and goal is to build membership. and their service is the gospel. So, as we all know, supposedly the gospel is supposed to be free. But in reality, many people have been paying for the gospel. And I'll show you how. Now, when churches talk about tithing and offering, they primarily talk about tithing and offering for the needs of the church. The problem is that the question, well, let's say not the problem, let's say what the question is the needs being met? When people are paying tithing and when people are paying offering, the question is, are the needs being met? And the only way you can see if the needs are being met, you got to go back to the community, because the church is supposed to be supportive and implementing things within the community. And primarily, the church is supposed to be there to help the needy. All right? So if you have a church within a community, they're supposed to be there to provide for those that are homeless, those that are hungry, those that are lacking in various things in life. And they're supposed to be there to support those individuals, because, I mean, that's what the government expects for the church to do. That's why they are nonprofit status, because the government expects for the church to be able to provide for the needs within the community. They can care less about salvation. They can care less about Jesus. They can care less about what your ideal is of God and salvation. That's not what the government looks at. They don't look at that. They look at, are you helping the community? That's the only way you can get a write-off, okay, as far as not paying taxes. So you'll find that a lot of churches, they implement outreach ministries, okay? And outreach ministries, probably 70% of them are built up of food banks. A lot of churches do food banks. They feed the hungry. They clothe the homeless. And they sometimes will offer shelter in some churches, some facilities. But then we got to look at what percentage of the church is going into those areas. Now, the trick of it is that with pastors that think like a CEO and not totally like a pastor, they create what we call, or what I would call, a division of the ministry. All right, a division of the church per se. Just like a business have various divisions and departments and area, different stores that may fall up under one umbrella. You have pastors that do that with the church, and they will call it ministry, okay? And they would do a trade name or a brand name of their name, all right? And so when you start talking about the funds that goes into the church, they are distributed. They have a budget, just like a business. A church have a budget, and a percentage of those funds are spread out throughout that budget, from the pastor to the outreach ministry to the ministry, the brand name, the trade name, and the upkeep of the facility, a mortgage, the light, gas if they have it, upkeep of maintenance, cleanliness, the pews, all that stuff is a part of maintaining the ministry. But let's look at where the problems falls in at. What happens is when a pastor has a brand name or a trade name, that means more than likely he owns that. And so he can write books, do music, do plays, do different things up under that trade brand name. And every dollar that comes through comes through the church as a budget, some of that money goes to the trade name and the brand name, because as he sell books, as he sell music and different things like that, that advocates the money that comes in from those merchandise or services or whatever the case may be, goes right back into that brand and that trade name. Now that would be clear money. That money goes to whom? More than likely that money goes directly to the pastor, because he owns the trade and the brand, even though it falls up under one umbrella. Now, a lot of things, when you start talking about houses and cars and different things that are purchased, it all has to be purchased up under that same umbrella that no taxes would have to be paid. And we're talking about free, clear money, no government taxes, all right? So if a pastor buys a house or a car or anything and he buys it up under the church's, the umbrella of the church, then he don't have to pay taxes on it. So it's clear and free money, right? So we're still thinking like a CEO, a businessman. Now, this is the flip side. This is my belief in how I think it should be set up, all right? First of all, a pastor is not a master. He is a servant to the people. That's the way, biblically speaking, that's the way it should be. He should be a servant to God's people. That's the first thing. Should his needs be provided for? That's the big question that everybody may have. Should a pastor's need be provided for? Should his needs be provided for by the church or by the members? Or should the tithing and offering provide for his needs? Yes, but the church should provide for the needs, not the wants. That's a difference between a need and a want. So shelter, yes, but a modest shelter. Food, yes. Transportation, yes. All these things should be provided for. But when they start getting into mansions and Mercedes-Benz and jets and planes, then we're going into a whole nother area. The pastor has transformed from a pastor to a CEO. And you need to know if you have a pastor or a CEO. And the way you know that is you watch the money and you watch the lifestyle. It's just as simple as that. So if you're following me, I'm just kind of trying to help you how this should be. Okay, so first, the church should provide for the pastor. Should he get a salary? Now, when I was coming up in churches, people say, let's give the pastor love offering. The reason why pastors was given love offerings from a lot of the ministries that I was a part of, because usually the pastor worked and he would use a lot of his resources to keep the church moving. All right. And so he would get a love offering to kind of help him in that area because his members was very poor and a lot of them didn't have any money. And these was like small ministries. But now you have what we call mega churches where they're getting millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars into the church nowadays. But they're building cathedrals and big Ephesus and all these huge facilities that cost money, millions of dollars to build these things. And to maintain them, it costs millions of dollars to maintain them each year. So we should ask ourselves, should the church be doing this? Should the church be building mega cathedrals? Should the church be pouring out all this money for buildings and sanctuaries and planes and cars when people are so in need? Should the church be sending money in other countries when they've got people suffering right in their communities, right in their neighborhoods? These are the questions that you should be asking if you are part of any church or cathedral or mega ministry or whatever. These are questions that you should be asking. Should you ask your pastor? Hey, go for it, So we just have to begin to look at how it should be functioning. Me personally, I don't feel like a church should be in debt. I don't feel like they should have a mortgage. I don't think they should be spending out all this kind of money for tangible things. When in fact, the most important thing is the people and the souls. I mean, that's the way it was established. That's the way it was established from the beginning. The most important thing that should be for the church